Welcome to News2ShareMissouri podcast for Sunday, November the 8th. Boy, there's a lot to talk about today, guys. A lot. So, let's get started with today's podcast. As you know, Missouri and the United States went through an election last week. There's been a bunch of, as you call it, thinking that there's been fraud on the election between Joe Biden, election fraud and all that. Today, Trump campaign released a statement stating the President Trump's re-election campaign and the Republican National Committee today filed a lawsuit in pardon my language there, in Arizona, alleging that the Maricopa County incorrectly rejected votes cast in by person on voters on election day. When a machine detects an overvote on a ballot, poll workers should inform in-person voters of the error and give them an opportunity to correct the issue. Instead, poll workers with that county pressed and told voters to press a green button to override the error. As a result, the machines disregarded the voters' choice in the overvoted races. So the campaign has collected declarations from voters who witnessed the problem and alleges that the problem occurred on a large scale. So if you got anything that you can submit additional declarations, they're telling you to go to don'ttouchthegreenbutton.com. Poll workers also struggled to operate the new voting machines in that county and improperly pressed and told voters to press the green button to override significant errors. So the result is that the voting machines disregarded votes cast by voters in person on election day. The suit asked for manual inspection of that machine. So I think Trump's going to whine and cry and not leave the White House like he's supposed to. Joe Biden, they said there's no detection of fraud whatsoever on the Republican or Democratic poll watchers in different states. The only ones are in Georgia and Pennsylvania that are calling foul. So yesterday, President Trump released another statement. He went on a Twitter rampage yesterday, as we all know. So here's what Trump had to say, quote, "We all know why Joe Biden is rushing to falsely pose as the winner and why his media allies are trying so hard to help him. They don't want the truth to be exposed. The simple fact is the election is far from over. Joe Biden has not been certified the winner, which is false. He's been certified the winner of Missouri, or all the blue states so far. Not Missouri. Trump certified Missouri here in Missouri. He also states his campaign has valid and legitimate legal challenges that could determine the ultimate victor. Trump knows he lost, so he's going to postpone this election so it'll stay in the people's house for a little bit longer. But Joe Biden's campaign fired back with a comment, quote, "The United States knows how to deal with trespassers," meaning on January 20th, 2021, when Biden takes office and that inauguration and becomes our president, Trump is officially got to leave the White House. If he don't, he can be kicked out for trespassing, is what Joe Biden's campaign is saying. So I believe that Trump's got a case. I believe Biden's got one too. But I think Trump's case is, I've seen this online, I don't know where it's at, but Trump's just worried because after Election Day, or the inauguration, when he flies on Air Force One on his way back to Florida, that when it turns over to Exec 1, Executive 1 instead of Air Force 1, I believe Trump's going to be arrested. You know, that's what everybody's saying. They believe Trump's going to be arrested. So, we don't know. Trump's been emailing and campaign's been emailing everybody and all that. So, also on November 6th, Trump said from his golf course, playing golf as always, said, "We believe every American people deserves to have full transparency into all voting, counting, and election certification. And that is no longer about any single election event. This is about our integrity of our entire election process." So Trump's saying he believes that it's not legal. But what about the person in Pennsylvania that got in trouble with guns in their cars and almost 25,000 ballots with Trump marked on them? They all had Trump. So, I believe both parties are committing fraud. If 25,000 comes in from Trump by a person, and also the one United States postal worker that crossed the border, you know, with the votes in his car. So I don't know. It's going to be a pretty messed up election. But also, Biden plans executive actions to undo Trump's policies. You know, he also said he's going to do a bunch of undoing what President Trump has done. President-elect Joe Biden has pledged to reassert the United States leadership role on the global stage through a series of day one executive actions that would mark a drastic turn from outgoing President Donald Trump's policies. Now that Biden has defeated Trump, his transition team is beginning to turn his campaign trail promises into plans that he can implement early into his presidency. Biden's first focus is likely to be the worsening of the coronavirus pandemic. He is set to name a 12-person coronavirus task force on Monday. Two sources with knowledge of his plans said Biden also said during the campaign that he'll speak with Dr. Anthony Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert, before taking office. He's also poised to enact a series of executive actions that would turn many of Trump's foreign policy actions and seek to rapidly return the United States to its status at the end of former President Barack Obama administration. So, asked about the actions Biden will take on his first day in office, his campaign advisor released a statement saying that the president-elect is going to make good on his promises made on the campaign trail. Biden repeatedly promised on his first day in office to join the Paris Climate Accord, and a landmark international deal to combat climate change that Trump exited on 2017. He also said he would join the WHO organization again, which Trump withdrew from. Both actions underscore a major difference between Biden and Trump. Biden has long believed in the multilateral organizations and pacts that Trump distrusts. Biden has also said he will repeal Trump's ban on travel for some Muslim majority countries and reinstate the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which allows dreamers, undocumented immigrants, who were brought to our country illegally to remain in our country. So the outcome of the election is with the Republicans still holding a narrow Senate majority, though Democrats would gain control of the chamber if they win the 2 seats in the Senate runoff in Georgia in early January. But it underscores difficulty for Biden to win those. His transition team also assembled and has quietly been preparing since Labor Day and has ramped up its activities in the recent weeks, including launching a website and a social media account today. So the Biden and Harris transition Twitter account tweeted that the incoming administration will take on the most urgent challenges that's facing our nation right now: protecting and preserving our nation's health, renewing our opportunity to succeed at advancing racial equality, meaning Black Lives Matter, and fighting the climate crisis that we're undergoing right now. So Biden has listed a number of other priorities on the campaign trail, and in the policies his campaign released throughout the primary and the general election, including addressing systemic racism, climate change, and expanding protections for us union workers. So I don't know, man. It's just a big mess up. So we won't know if the next 4 years is going to be hell or no hell, So, but he's also pledged to take steps to reform our government that Trump has disbanded, including expanding on and codifying into law an ethics pledge instituted by Obama that addresses lobbying issues and also any improper or inappropriate influence from personal, financial, and other interest. He also promised to reinstate the guidance instituted during Obama's administration that would restore transgender students access to sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms in accordance with their gender identity. So that is pretty much what Biden's plans are. Also, we've seen that Bush calls and congratulates Biden. And Bush says the election was fundamentally fair. And that was our last president before Obama. Plus, Romney also called in to get behind Joe Biden and congratulate Joe Biden, the first Republican senator. So Romney also calls for the nation to get behind Biden. So Missouri GOP governor says he hopes Trump will do the right thing and end and concede the election. Trump already said he's not going to concede the election. I believe people are saying on Facebook they believe that it's going to be a battle to get Trump out of the White House. So, guys, give us 1 minute. I'm going to take a short break. All right, guys, welcome back. We was looking here. President Joe Biden or President-elect Joe Biden, seeks to unite nation with his victory speech. If anybody watched his victory speech, comment in the section below what you thought of his victory speech. So, Jared Kushner has approached Donald Trump to concede the election. And Melania Trump advised the president to accept the loss. So Melania and Jared is telling him to accept the loss, but he's being stubborn and not listening. I can't believe Melania Trump's even telling him he needs to concede the election. But that's what I see so far. So Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and senior advisor has approached the president about conceding the election. That's what two sources told a local news source. And First Lady Melania Trump has advised the president the time has come for him to accept the election loss, a separate source familiar with the conversation. Though the First Lady has not publicly commented on the election, she has privately weighed in with her option, the sources noted. She's offered it, as she often does. So, Trump campaign spokesman Jason Miller tweeted Sunday, denied that Kushner has approached Trump, although this source stands by what it's reporting. This story is not true, said Miller. Jared has advised real Donald Trump to pursue all available legal remedies. Because if someone in the campaign is saying, okay, just concede, it's going to hurt Donald Trump's cases. So the race is far from over. You know, moments after CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS projected that Biden will become the 46th president of the United States, they released a statement saying that Biden is rushing to falsely pose as a winner. Well, Trump falsely posed as a winner during his press conference there in the White House. He says, like I said earlier in our little beginning of our vlog, that Trump said he will not rest until the American people have an honest count. But the campaign manager for Biden-Harris said Saturday night that there had been no communication between Trump and Biden or between any representatives, which is unusual because usually when it's like this, the other president calls and congratulates, or the other person calls and congratulates the person, but none of that's happened. So Biden won it Saturday after Battle's great state of Pennsylvania pushed the Democrat over 270 electoral votes. Trump was at his golf course in Sterling, Virginia on Saturday when the race was called. So he has not denied the outcome of the election privately, but he's continued to push his attorneys to pursue legal challenges. Like Rudy Giuliani, when, So, meanwhile, some of the members of Trump's party on Saturday vocalized their opposition to the president conceding the election, urging him not to do so. Ted Cruz, who also was on the Trump's one-time primary rival, also advised against conceding, saying it would be premature. Roy Blunt of Missouri would not acknowledge on Sunday that Biden is the president-elect, citing both legal challenges initiated by the Trump's lawyers in states across the country and the ongoing voting process. Trump is the first person to 270 wins. So Biden is already at 270 votes. So Biden won legally. So Trump's two sons, they have been key voices in urging the president and his allies to continue contesting the results of the 2020 election, according to multiple people. Beyond the public posturing on social media, both Don Jr. and Eric Trump have been digging in their heels, seeking to drum up broad GOP support for contesting the election results and telling allies they generally believe the election was fraudulent. So, if Trump can push it through court that the election was fraudulent and request a revote, would these, without mail-in ballots or without provisional ballots, what would happen? Do you think that the Republican judge, which is Amy Barrett, if it gets in front of Amy Barrett, you think she would vote for it? Or say, yes, this is a fraudulent election, let's revote. But you cannot mail in, you must go vote. And all these mail-in ballots that push Joe Biden over is gone. What would happen there? That's why I do believe that he, made his Supreme Court nominee. So, in the days following the election, Don traveled to Georgia, where 2 congressional races, one of which has already advanced to January 5th runoff, and the other likely could determine the control of the Senate, which Republicans have right now. So while he was there, he held a press conference decrying the voting count process here in the Senate state. People familiar with the matters also said he held meetings focused on the upcoming Senate races. So, as of right now, Biden is at 279 electoral votes, and Trump is at 214 electoral votes. Excuse me. Well, what happens between now and Inauguration Day? What will happen between the inauguration? So, what do you guys think will happen between that? Take a few minutes and put it in the comments and we'll read them. What happens between now and Inauguration Day? Well, Americans who went to the polls on Election Day don't actually select the president directly. They were technically voting for the 538 electors who, according to the system laid out by the Constitution of the United States, will meet in the representative states and vote for president and vice president once the popular vote totals are completely counted and certified. These electorals are collectively referred to as the Electoral College, and their votes will be forwarded to the President of the Senate, who will count them in a joint session of Congress after the new year. So Americans have been refining the process of the election since the 1800s, which originally resulted in what we call now the Electoral College tie. The House of Representatives gave Thomas Jefferson the presidency, and that the first disputed election resulted in the 12th Amendment, which modified the Electoral College process. Later in 1824, John Quincy Adams got the White House despite not winning either the popularity vote or a majority in the Electoral College. So we could be going back to 1824 when this could be President Trump's time. President Trump still could get the White House by not winning the popular vote or the majority in the Electoral College. So Trump still has a chance. So we'll just see, In 1876, the results in several southern states were disputed, and the lack of a clear Electoral College results led to a deal in the House that gave Rutherford B. Hayes the presidency, even though he won neither Electoral College, nor the popular vote. That ultimately begat the Electoral Count Act of 1887, which is still in effect. So here's the timeline. What happens after Election Day? We here at News2ShareMissouri have sketched out legal mechanisms that lead from Election Day to Inauguration Day. So here we go. November 3rd, voters voted. Votes were counted. While many millions of Americans cast their ballots in the weeks leading up to election, either by mail or by in-person or absentee voter, U.S. law says Election Day occurs on the first Tuesday after the Monday in November. Votes are counted across the country on Election Day. November 4th through 23rd, votes are also counted. So we still got a couple weeks for that. So mail-in ballots have to be postmarked by November 3rd in every state, but they can be received late and still be counted in many states. In most cases, they must be received within a day or two of the election. But in Washington State, mail-in ballots can be received as late as November 23rd, the day before the state certifies its election results. How is that? In the battleground states of North Carolina and Pennsylvania, mail-in votes can be received until November 6th. In the battleground states of Minnesota and Nevada, they can be received until November 10th. And in Ohio, November 13th. So we still got votes that still got to come in by them days. Biden will actually be certified as the president by November 10th or between November 10th and December 11th. States certify election results. Each state does it a little differently, but starting a week after Election Day, state governments begin to certify their election results. Those deadlines can be changed in the event of a state recount if there's an extremely close result. So most of these dates occur in the last 2 weeks of November and all, but California's are mandated to occur by December 8th. So December 8th is a safe harbor to determine your election results and assign electors. Under Electoral Count Act, this is the date by which states are meant to have counted votes, settle disputes, and determine the winner of their electoral college votes. Governors are supposed to create certificates of assertment listing the winner of your election of your state and the state of electors. In 2000, your Supreme Court ended a targeted recount in Florida because it could not be completed by the safe harbor date. That recount would not have changed the outcome of the election, but a full statewide recount could have made Al Gore the president. So this is when it could have become very important for Republicans that they control more state legislators than Democrats, including in the most contested 2020 battleground states. So December 14th, a couple weeks before Christmas. All right. And the law states that on that date you must cast your electoral votes. So this is the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. This year it falls on December 14th, 6 days after disputes are supposed to be settled by your electors, are supposed to meet in their respective states and cast their votes. For your U.S. president, they can certify 6 sets of votes and send them to Washington. Many states have laws requiring their electors to support the winner of their state's election and can levy fines against faithless electors who go their own way. So Trump can pay the people's fines and make them go his way, but can that be considered fraud too? Only you never know. Day before Christmas Eve, the electoral votes must arrive in Washington by December 23rd. The certified electoral votes have 9 days to get from their states to Capitol Hill. January 3rd, your new Congress is sworn in. Members of the House and new members of the Senate take oath of office at noon. This is the official start of the 117th Congress. January 6th, your electoral votes are counted. Members of the House and Senate all meet in the House chamber. The President of the Senate, that's Vice President Mike Pence, presides over the session, and the electoral votes are read and counted in alphabetical order by 2 appointees, each from the House and Senate. They then give their tallies to Pence, who announces the results and listens for objections. So if there are objections, or if there are somehow multiple slates of electors put forward by a state, the House and Senate consider them separately to decide how to count these votes. There are 538 votes, one for each congressman and senator, plus 3 for Washington, D.C. if no candidate gets 270. The 435 members of the House decides the election. Each state gets a vote. While there are more Democrats in the House, Republicans as of now controls more state delegations. So it's very possible the House could pick Donald Trump, even though there is a Democratic majority. It requires a majority of state votes to become president. So the House has until noon on January 20th to pick the president. If they can't, it would be the vice president or the next person eligible in line for the presidential succession if they don't select the president. So, January 20th, a big day, 1/20/21. A new president takes oath of office at noon. If the president-elect dies between Election Day, God forbid, and inauguration, the vice president-elect takes the oath of office and becomes your president. In a disputed election, if the House has not chosen the president, but the Senate has chosen a vice president, the vice president-elect becomes the acting president until a House makes a choice. And if there is no president-elect and no vice president-elect, the House appoints a president until one is chosen. So it's kind of a win-win situation for all parties. So, it's a pretty messed up election, so we won't know, everything. Biden and Harris has released that new transition website. Let's see here if we can get you the website address. You can go on that page and look at it. BuildBackBetter.com. BuildBackBetter.com. It's got, if you go to that picture, it's got the President Joe Biden right there, the 46th President seal, restoring American leadership on day one. And by the way it looks here, they're going for COVID-19 on that day. So that's the job Joe Biden of Joe Biden. That's the job of the president. The duty to care, the president-elect. So, the transition. Let's see, what about transition? So, transfer of power. What if a president don't do a transfer of power? What do you guys think? We'll come back after this short commercial from Silver Dollar City, Old Time Christmas, and we'll discuss it. All right, guys, we are back. We're back for our second segment of our podcast. Where we left off was we was talking about what happens if a president loses the election but won't leave the House. A president refuses to commit to peaceful power, transfer of power. When he loses, what happens next? That's what's on everybody's mind. President Donald Trump has suggested he would not accept the results of the 2020 election. If he were to lose, let's say he does lose, and he refuses to leave the White House, what then? Nothing like this has ever happened in American history. So Trump could change American history. So it's difficult to know for certain. However, political scientists and historians told, I think it's Live Science, that I got some of this on. Live Science, they are reasonably confident it wouldn't work. In one scenario, assume Joe Biden wins by enough margins in enough swing states to put the actual election results beyond doubt. It's reasonable to wonder whether Trump, who has said that he would only lose if the election was rigged, would ever accept the results of an election he lost. According to the 20th Amendment, the 20th Amendment protects us from that. According to it, if Trump loses the election, his term would officially end at noon on January 20th, 2021, at which time he would officially pass his commander-in-chief authority to Joe Biden. The only way that would stop is if we go to war with Korea or another world war, civil war, because we cannot change presidents during a big war. So, even if Trump disagrees with the results, if Trump loses, he'd almost certainly be removed from the White House. According to a professor and the former acting director of the Columbia University Institute for Social and Economic Research, there's no reason today to assume things, quote, this is a quote from him, there is no reason today to assume things will ever get to that point. Trump might simply win the election, confounding polls for second time after 2016. He might lose it. The election then agreed to leave office, and he might be able to hang on to his office by putting his thumb on the scales in the court, as he said. Trump's stated strategy is already unprecedented. So Trump has reportedly said in public that he expects to win the election through court battles as opposed to a victory at the polls. Why do you think he put in the Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett? That's a win for him. This on its own wouldn't be entirely new. In the 2000 presidential election, Texas Governor George W. Bush defeated Vice President Al Gore, not by clearly having the most votes cast in his favor, but by more effectively fighting court battles following a Florida results to so hazy that, as Leon reported, the true winner may have been unknowable. That doesn't mean a court fight for the presidency is a new normal. Bush versus Gore, the 5-4 Supreme Court decision that ended in 2000 election, was supposed to be an arbitration. The conservative majority that handed the election to Bush wrote that the doctrine they used should never be used as should never been used. So first, Trump has taken a tremendous, but not entirely successful effort before the election day to prevent people from voting in key swing states. According to the Center of Public Integrity and the former Republican Speaker of the Texas House, GOP lawyers have fanned out across the country to make absentee voting more difficult and tried thus far unsuccessfully to toss out votes that have already been cast. Second, though Gore was the vice president to Bill Clinton, who supported him, and Bush was the brother to Florida Governor Jeb Bush, neither man was a president at the time they were fighting to overturn the election results. If Trump uses the Supreme Court challenge to win the election, as he suggested, he'll be doing so as a sitting president. And he will have personally installed 3 of the 9 justices who could decide if he wins. What would the Democrats do? We don't know. If that would happen, what would the Democrats do? And of course, neither Bush nor Gore threatened legal challenges before the election. So Trump has threatened before the election no sitting president or president who fought in an election has threatened legal challenges. Only when a huge, decisive swing state that come down to a few hundred uncertain votes did Gore fight for recounts, and Bush fought to stop the recounts. So, what's next? Stealing an election is hard. How can you steal an election if it's hard? Trump has struck out in uncharted territory with his threats of a legal battle for the president. But despite all the noise, we expect that the actual winner of the election will become the president. In the 2000 election, Florida was caught off guard. Nobody knew that was coming. Everything that's going on right now, everybody knows it's coming. Ultimately, the bureaucracy of elections is beyond Trump's reach right now. So each state election bureaucracies, are trying to complete the running of their elections and the counting of their votes. So they know what's coming and they know what they have to do, They said, these are election professionals who do vary in quality across states. They take pride in making elections work. There are no shenanigans among the actual civil service vote counters. And whatever shenanigans are attempted at some point, they have to end. Federal law says that states have to finalize their choices of electors on December 8th of the year of elections, and December 14th for the Electoral College to cast their votes. So if more vote for Biden, he will be the legal president-elect beyond the reach of a court challenge. U.S. presidential candidates have always accepted the election results. Trump hasn't. So still, what if Trump refuses to leave? What if he's still refusing to leave after the election results are all certified and he can't do nothing in court? It's worth saying again that while Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, he hasn't exactly said he would reject the results. Even at this point, and it would be true first in American history, ask if any president has ever hinted at refusing to accept the election results, a historian at Boston University said no. There is no such president or anything like it. So, this is going to be a worse election in my time or any of our times. So it's still, but still, what if? There's that what if. There's always a what if. You're talking about the situation where the votes have been counted, all legal challenges to the vote have been taken care of. The electors meet on the 14th and cast their ballots. The procedure is clear. At that point, it gets passed to Congress, usually by December 23rd. But what if Congress does not accept the results and changes their mind and votes for Trump. In legal terms, there's little that Trump could do to hold on to power. Very little. If Trump does not want to vacate the White House, this is very easy. Somebody swears Biden in as president. It could be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It could be his grandmother. As of noon on the 20th, he's the president of the United States. The entire Secret Service reports to him. Donald Trump, as the outgoing president, has to contingent of the Secret Service. Biden goes to the White House and the Secret Service escorts Trump out. That's what will happen. What if Trump don't go peacefully? Can he get arrested for trespassing in a federal building after noon on the 20th? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. All the civil service of the government, every employee of the United States reports to Joe Biden at that time. Trump loses everything. The story is straightforward. Resolution comes with its own assumptions that the electors are able to vote and have their votes certified. So, with its role of clarifying the function as expected, and that the Secret Service, as well as other armed federal agents, follow law, there are places in the world and moments in history where transfers of power have been broken down along similar lines, but they have never before in the United States. Let's see here. What else we got on that? But, so what do you guys think? You guys think that there would be a peaceful transfer of power? Anything? Or, even though Donald Trump falsely declared victory on the night of the election and vowed to go to the Supreme Court to stop counting, that's why, we got to figure out what's going to happen. But one thing you could say is Donald Trump's supporters ain't like the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not like BLM or Antifa. They're not going out and protest and riot and loot when they don't get their way. They're going out and just straight protest. So, it's kind of bad, but we don't know what would happen. Could there be a transfer of power if we're under war? Let's take a look at that. I was just thinking about that. Can there be a transfer of power? Give me a minute. Can there be a presidential election during a war? During a war. All right. So, okay, this is coming up. That's coming up as, can there be a presidential election during the war? And I don't want that. Can there be a presidential transfer of power during war? All right. So the process of transition powers, if the president dies, resigns, or is removed. So, okay, right to succeed, going to war to make them stop. Okay. So Wikipedia says that if it does go to war, that Trump can stay in office if it does go to war. If we do go to war, we can't have a new president. Okay, I didn't put inauguration. Sorry, guys. So, swears to the president. But if that doesn't happen, there will still be the world would still have to live with President Donald Trump. Okay. This website says, man, give me a few minutes, guys. I'll be right back. All right, guys, sorry about that. I had to type it incorrect. If a war was to break out, this is from Quora.com. If a war was to break out between the U.S. and another country during the election, then would the appointment of a new president be postponed? One person wrote, this is a political science, has a bachelor in political science. Although a lot of people seem to imagine nightmare scenarios in which the U.S. president declares a national emergency and suspends the next election, allowing him to stay in office indefinitely. And although this does happen far too often in less developed democracies in the world today, this is simply not going to happen in our state. So that answers our question right there. So even if a new war started a week before the election or during the period between the election and inauguration of a new president, the changeover would still happen. So that answers that question. If there was ever a situation in U.S. history where the presidential election could have been suspended due to a national emergency, it would have been in 1864, midst of the Civil War. So they fixed it where it can't. So there's just not any mechanism. So even if we go to war, Donald Trump could, still not be president. So that's a good sign. That's a very good sign right there. So he couldn't do that. So have you guys, also in the comments below, have you guys also done nightmare scenarios in your head of what it could come out to in the election? What would happen if Trump don't succeed the presidency? So, what do you guys think? It just depends on what everybody thinks. So, also today, Alex Trebek, long-running Jeopardy host, dies at 80. So, Trebek has died after battling pancreatic cancer for nearly 2 years. So, Kanye West votes for himself and receives over 54,000 votes for the 2020 election. That's better than what I thought he would do. I thought he would only have like 50 to 60 votes, but he had 54,000 votes for the presidential election. Okay, so there has been claims that dead people voted also, and it went viral. Do you believe dead people can vote? Here's the facts. To hear some people tell us, including a handful of prominent Republicans, such as members of President Trump's family, supporters, Newt Gingrich, and former acting director of National Intelligence, you might think that Democrats were using dead people to steal Michigan from Trump. But like much of the misinformation circulated online this week by some Trump supporters, the claims fell apart under scrutiny. One of the supposed pieces of evidence was a list that circulated on Twitter Thursday evening as allegedly containing names, birth dates, and zip codes for registered voters in Michigan. The origin of the list and the identity of the person who first made it is not known right now. So, it's just like, it's false. There's a lot of errors. Dead people can't vote. Governor Parsons' top staff tracked by secret GPS devices. Now your FBI is involved. A St. Louis County private investigator admitted he placed GPS tracking devices on the vehicles of 2 Missouri top government officials. He says tracking people is part of his business, and sometimes that requires him to place GPS tracking devices on public and private vehicles. Mike Bland, who is a licensed private investigator in Missouri, says he was recently hired to put GPS trackers on private vehicles owned by Drew Edmond and Sarah Steelman. Edmond is the state chief operating under Governor Mike Parson, and Steelman is a commissioner of the Office of Administration, who handles purchasing and contracts for the state. Bland claimed the incident is now under investigation by the FBI and the Highway State Patrol. They questioned him for 5 hours. Bland claims Edmond discovered the device and reported it to police, and the Missouri State Highway Patrol tracked it back to Bland. He admits he placed the trackers, but said he was doing it part of a business transaction with a man named John Wall. Wall is affiliated with a Farmington-based company called Asmetic Solutions. According to the company's website, it offers military, law enforcement, and civilian training. According to his LinkedIn profile tweet by the Arizona Commerce Authority, Wall is also associated with the company called Red List. Bland says Wall told him why he wanted to track Edmond and Steelman. He's trying to find information why they have not used his facial recognition company. So News2ShareMissouri is unaware of any inappropriate relationships between Erdman and Steelman. And according to the spokesman with the Office of the Administration, there's no record of Asmetic Solutions or having applied for any state contracts. Likewise, the other Office of Administration has not awarded any contracts for facial recognition around the Capitol or Governor's Mansion. After being questioned by authorities, Bland is convinced he didn't get the entire truth. Referring to authorities, he added, "They told me themselves I wasn't given the real story." Bland also said the story takes another twist. Bland said he had trouble finding Steelman's vehicle, but he claims he was assisted by Wall and State Representative Dottie Bailey. He described a phone call he received from Wall the day the GPS tracker was placed on Steelman's personal vehicle. Next thing, he calls him back, kind of adrenaline going, out of breath, telling me he had located Sarah Steelman's black F-150. He and Dottie were basically pursuing it up Highway 63 towards Columbia, Bland recalled. Bland says he met Wall and Bailey at a golf course in North Jefferson City, where Bland placed a GPS tracker on Steelman's vehicle. We reached out to Bailey to ask if she was involved. Over the phone, she said, "Okay, so this guy's a loon. Oh, shoot, I have another call coming in. I don't know. So many damn stories going on. I'm working on other stuff. I appreciate the call. Thanks, though." Then she hung up the phone. A follow-up call was not returned. Nobody answered the door at their home. We left multiple messages for Wall, but he's never returned any of them at the moment. Bland claims he was only doing his job. He's not a political operative. He says he's never heard of Erdman or Steelman prior to being asked to track their vehicles. Bland claims he was paid $2,500 to do the job and showed us an online transaction with Wall's name and a payment for $2,500. A spokesman for Parsons' office released a statement saying, "Unfortunately, a governor's staff member and cabinet member were victims of a potential criminal activity that was tied to their roles as public servants. The harassing behavior was immediately reported to authorities. We are complying with the full investigation and hope these responsible people are held accountable. Bland says he's coming forward because the state is planning to question him about an unrelated matter involving his private investigator's license, and he doesn't want to tarnish or cost him his license. It's not against the law to put GPS trackers on vehicles here in Missouri. So Matthew Bodie teaches privacy law at the St. Louis University. He argues it is a trespass to place something on a vehicle that belongs to someone else. He adds it's possible there's a law that would override the general law for private investigators, but he's not aware of it. So we'll keep you posted on this story. So that's all for today, guys. We'll be back on Monday or Tuesday with another podcast. So y'all have a good day, a good rest of your weekend, and stay safe.